Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food. I'm your host, Cliff Sargent. Great to see you as always. Let's talk about a film. This will contain spoilers. Badlands is one of my favorite films. It is one of the greatest road movies ever made. Right up there with Wild at Heart, Vanishing Point, Il Sorpasso, Paris, Texas, and Two-Lane Blacktop, which is another film with Warren Oates. Badlands, directed by Terrence Malick, is a masterpiece. There's no other way to put it. Maybe it's Sissy Spacek's childlike voiceover narration, or the oddly cheery marimba in the score, but there's a strange fairy tale quality to Badlands, an innocence that makes it all the more disturbing. Spacek's voiceover is like she's reading out of a book, which she actually does in the film, and it's the exact same tone of voice, you know? So that's what it's sort of like. It's like you're being told the story. You're being like she's reading you a story, the story like her diary or something. And when Kit, who's played by Martin Sheen, sees Holly, played by Sissy Spacek, presumably for the first time, twirling a baton, and walks over, introducing himself and saying, "Just thought I'd come over and say hello to you. I'll try anything once." Well, it makes the hair on your arm rise after you know what's up, because Kit is one hell of a killer. This is about Kit and Holly and their road trip in the 1950s. Or killing spree, you know. Based off of the Charles Starkweather murders, where he kidnapped, Charles Starkweather in Nebraska kidnapped this 14-year-old gal, and they went off on a murder spree, and it became very, very, very well known. In short lines of dialogue, I mean, it's barely detectable. I didn't even realize it the first time I watched it, or maybe the second time. We realized that Kit is actually a veteran of the Korean War, working blue-collar jobs, collecting garbage, being a cowboy, wearing the boots and all, and looking like James Dean with this denim-on-denim outfit, which looks terrific. So he falls in love with Holly, who's a 15-year-old girl in this small town. And since Kit is 25, of course, this pisses off her father, played by Warren Oates. And Warren Oates is a scary father. Always got this cigarette in his mouth. He's a sign painter, so he's always painting signs. He's got this cigarette in his mouth. He's got this white fedora and this giant fucking popped collar. It's just, he's like the scariest dad, you know? Like, you do not want to fuck with Warren Oates. And, man, it's just got that, he just got that quality, man. But I mean, everybody does in this film. All of these actors are perfect for the roles. I mean, Martin Sheen is, and he's so handsome, and he's just like, he's perfect. And Sissy Spacek is beautiful, you know? And she's like 24, 3 or 4, I think, actually. She's in her 20s. She's playing a 15-year-old girl. And to be fair, like, Martin Sheen is like 30-something, and he's playing a 25-year-old. He's got that, like, smoky, you know, just like epic voice that just sounds like it's been like, he sounds so much older than he looks. And there's this gravity and this drama to his voice that I think is just like, it's such a component of the film. I think it would be very, very, very different. And not, I mean, if it wasn't Martin Sheen, what I'm trying to say is like everybody's perfectly cast. It's a perfectly cast film. Anyways, moving on. Warren Oates. I mean, he's a mean son of a bitch. For disobeying him and continuing to see Kit, he takes a revolver and he shoots Holly's dog. He shoots his daughter's dog. Then he puts the body in a duffel bag and chucks it into the river. It's like, I'm not devaluing human life, and I'm not saying that the main characters are innocent. But even though I heard a guy talk about this film being about two sociopaths, that is ironically the most evil act of cruelty portrayed in this film. This is his brutal method to protecting his daughter. The interesting thing is to compare his act of killing something innocent with the actions of Kit that follow. They both want to protect the thing they love, which is Holly, and they do that by killing others. So Kit breaks into his house, one day and informs him, with a revolver, that he's going to take Holly. Kit doesn't originally intend to kill him, it seems. And that exchange is amazing, brilliantly performed by Oates and Sheen. But Oates stands his ground, so Kit kills him. The strange thing is that Holly goes with him, you know? Strange, maybe not so strange. I don't know. It's, you know, because you want to think it's not necessarily Stockholm Syndrome. You want to think it's a stretch in some cases. And maybe it is, you know, a little bit of suspension of disbelief. You know, that's what movies do. That's what they're supposed to do. But, you know, and this other part is like kind of believable. I mean, because it's like teenage love, you know, an obsession. I don't know. So he runs away with Holly. All of this is spontaneous. Everything Kit does feels spontaneous, like impulsive, like he's really sort of improvising his life. He really doesn't seem to have any sort of plan. Or if he does, it hasn't, he hasn't thought about it too far. And so he's just improvising as he goes with this intensity, searching for something and running from something. Terrence Malick, the director, was the one who shot the scene of Kit with his arms on the gun when the moon's rising in the Badlands of Montana. Arguably the most visually iconic moment of the film. I think that the cinematographer had like left for the day or something, and the moon rises and they're like, oh, fuck, so they jump out and get the shot. And Malick shoots it himself. But from what I've read, that's sort of how things had to happen on the production. It was difficult. It was rough. Malick even makes a cameo in the film as an architect carrying some blueprints who arrives at this rich man's house, only to have Kit answer the door as he and Holly are hiding there. It is such an intense film, but also so quiet. These beautiful panoramic shots. I mean, it really shows you how beautiful America is as a country, like literally, like just the geography, just really stunning wide shots of the Badlands and these just vistas. It's the ultimate road movie. It's so good. It doesn't manufacture the kind of intensity you find today, to a degree where going to a dramatic film in the theater is basically a 2-hour panic attack. At least for me. I don't know. The style of newer films building tension is always just like, it's like trailers and everything, or like modern horror films. It's just like oh my god. It's like always just, you can feel intensity without having to feel anxiety. I think there's a big difference between anxiety and intensity. I think intensity comes from something meaningful. Anxiety just comes from stress, like physical stress. Like the filmmakers are trying to stress you out instead of actually just letting the nature of the narrative hit you with that gravity. Instead, unfortunately, because so many films are bad, it's just like the writing is bad or whatever is bad, and it's not playing, you have to bump up the stress level using stuff in post, sound design or editing or just provocative crap. I don't know. Anyways, complaining. This intensity is the kind where you're listening to the stillness of the night, right on the verge of sleep, thinking about the heaviness of life, love, and death. And you can feel that deep space in your solar plexus. The feeling you get when the immensity of the sky at night suddenly dawns on you, looking up. Or when you're alone looking at the ocean. That kind of space. And there's a lot of space in Malick's work, which is, literally in the shots and just in the kind of meditative quality of the narrative and the experiences of the characters. The only thing that seems to be important to Kit is Holly and his hair. He doesn't have this feeling of cruelty, rather it's this sort of fear, which isn't unlike the character he plays several years later in Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. You kind of get a taste of what's to come in this one, because that's, wow. That's one of the greatest war films. That's one of the greatest films. It's not even, oh, fuck. Apocalypse Now is one of the greatest films ever made, undoubtedly, and I think one of the riskiest. So they kill her dad, right, they drive off and they run away, and they hide in the woods and literally create a treehouse, kind of like their own world, complete with booby traps and passwords and everything, fishing and like chickens. Again, here's where the childlike fairy tale quality is present. And that's where the strange innocence of the characters is highlighted. They act like children, dancing around to the radio and fishing and reading and just hiding out. But Holly, SpaceX's character, is realizing, that there's a whole other world out there. I mean, she's just a girl in the film. It's a coming of age story for her, in part, And it's also just sort of like the downfall of this guy who was trying hard to become something. But just went down the wrong fucking path. Definitely. But you can understand their motivations. And it's about two lovers trying to escape. Trying to escape the rest of the world. To seek freedom. Just to exist and be with each other without the weight of the world crushing them and tearing them apart. Of course it goes dark in the process. Of course it goes wrong. It always does. Because, we die. One way or another. Whether it's gunned down by the police or lying on your deathbed from cancer, in like 80 years. you die. And Kit's actions seem in part a horrified reaction to what he's seen in the war, his bleak nowhere small town future, and the threat of losing Holly. Of course, the inspiration for this film, which was the Starkweather murders and the serial killer Charles Starkweather, was much darker. Really vicious guy. Really nasty serial killer. Very different tone. Very. Those same murders, though, inspired the film Natural Born Killers by Oliver Stone and the song Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. And that's also the name of the album it's on, Nebraska. That's an awesome album. I love that album. State Trooper is just like, oh yeah, and Atlantic City. Those are like fucking terrific songs. Anyways, Kit seems far more human than Starkweather, and maybe that's necessary for the film to succeed. When Kit kills people, it's out of fear of being caught. It's the desperation of a trapped man. There's no pleasure taken in his murders, though it does seem to become easier for him as time goes on. And then he really enjoys the fame, because everybody knows about him and everybody's chasing them. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a character change in that sense, but anyways, it's interesting to compare. He's a man who made a decision on impulse and is trying to figure out how to navigate his way out, and the walls are closing in. But he still maintains this goofy innocence, which is what I think that's really Sheen's, just a testament to Sheen's acting ability. I mean, he's funny, just in his movements, his mannerisms. He's at once serious but also humorous. Even after the murders and when they hide in the rich man's house, as they're leaving in this rich man's Cadillac that they're stealing, Kit gives the rich man a list of things he's borrowed, including the car. He's a murderer with manners, So it's a Southerner thing. I don't know. That Southern kindness, right? I was born in Norman, Oklahoma. I don't know if I spent a little bit of my childhood visiting Texas and Oklahoma. I like stories that take place down there. It reminds me of some things growing up. There's an article on the Criterion Collection website that frequently brings up lines from Flannery O'Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find, this terrific short story that I reviewed a while back if you want to check it out. Brilliant, vicious, great short story. Definitely a similar tone, definitely a similar atmosphere. So my favorite scene, I want to tell you about my favorite scene. I'd like to do that for all the film reviews. I want to tell you about my favorite scene. And, it's a good one. The scene that really sticks with me, of course, is the scene of them slow dancing in the headlights of Kit's car to Nat King Cole, the Cadillac that they stole from the rich man. Now I guess it's Kit's car, whatever. And Martin Sheen in his $1 million smoky voice, in the most unbelievably tragic and longing voice that has ever been heard in a film, telling Holly, as they're dancing to the music, if I could sing a song about the way I feel right now, it'd be a hit. It's just like one of the saddest things ever, because you just know neither of them are going to make it out okay. And it's not going to be all right, even if they live. It just kind of encapsulates the brief moments of satisfaction or happiness or love that we have in life. And it's all beautiful and intense and wonderful because it will end. This too shall come to pass. And it's just fucking devastating. Slow dancing in the beams of the car, surrounded by darkness. Beautiful scene. It's impossibly good. Terrence Malick is an American film director who grew up around Oklahoma and Texas. He made Badlands in 1973 when he was about 28, and it was a difficult production from the sounds of it. He said, "We were shooting on private properties without authorization. The police were looking for us along with the IRS. We ourselves were on the run." And then he pulls it all together and he makes this masterpiece of a debut film. Just astonishing. Then it took him 5 years to make another film, Days of Heaven, with Richard Gere. And then he disappeared. He stopped. He vanished for 20 years. 20 years. Malick studied philosophy at Oxford and then taught it at MIT. He's quite the accomplished artist, but very protective of his privacy, which of course makes him fascinating. He's a very interesting guy with a very interesting past, and I need to watch more of his films. So anyways, Badlands is one of my favorites of all time, hands down. Better than Food, without question. So who should watch it? If you're into any kind of American road films, or the Bonnie and Clyde story, of course, it's sort of an archetype which this falls into. If you like The Last Picture Show, HUD with Paul Newman, great film. Any kind of Southern drama, or if you like dark 1970s existential films, this is for you. Now, who's going to get it for the Coffee Lottery? The Coffee Lottery, for those of you who are new, is where I take the names of all the patrons on Patreon who donated $5 or more to the show. I place their names in this mason jar. I pull out a name for every review, and for the film reviews, whoever's name I pull out, I give them either a month subscription to the new streaming Criterion channel or a book of their choice, along with some delicious coffee roasted by yours truly. And the coffee's amazing. Drinking it right now, highly caffeinated. Love it. If you would like to get in on that, you can head over to patreon.com/books are better than food and donate $5 or more per video, or click on the link in the description box below. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and best of luck to all the patrons who have supported the show already. You're keeping this whole thing going. All right, here we go. Who's it gonna be today? Rowan. Thanks a bunch, Rowan. Really appreciate all the help. You're gonna receive some delicious coffee, plus a subscription to the Criterion channel or a book of your choice. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the film. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.